Want to navigate the complexities of peak season and skyrocket your holiday sales? Then you're in the right place. We'll be tackling these challenges head on today with Jay Topper, CCO of Fabric. We'll explore how to optimize your digital presence, leverage key performance metrics, and create a truly customer centric approach that keeps sales flowing. Get ready to unlock your sales potential. Talk Commerce is brought to you by Content Basis, your full service e commerce marketing agency. Visit contentbasis.io and learn how you can leverage your existing content to drive online sales. That's contentbasis.io.
You're listening to Talk Commerce. Subscribe and download at talk-commerce.com.
Welcome to this episode of Talk Commerce. Today I have Jay Topper. He is the CCO of Fabric. Jay, go ahead, do an introduction. Tell us your day-to-day role and give us a passion in life that you have.
Yeah, a little brief introduction. I'm on my third career. My first career was in our United States military in the Coast Guard and Army. And then I was in retail and in the CDO, CTO, CIO suite for about 27 years. And now I work for a software platform company called Fabric. As Chief Customer Officer, I have three main responsibilities. One is the customer, which ties right back into the passion. I'm responsible for partnerships, and then I bring a dose of retail expertise to the brand. So I have a podcast and a blog series that I've just started. So I'm brand new to this content generation world. As far as real passions for me, I love talking to customers and prospective customers. I've loved that going back several jobs when I just became humbled by people that are spending money with my company, whether you're buying a shirt at a clothing retailer or a big software platform, to get into the head of customers of what they're looking to solve and what their problems are. And then the whole ecosystem you build around that. So everyone says they're customer centric, but to me, it's just a central passion of everything I do.
That's great. Jay, before we get into content, we're going to talk about digital first and kind of some metrics about e-commerce and some other topics that will come up today. But before we do that, I would like to just tell you a joke. And I know that you volunteered to be part of the free joke project. I'm going to tell you a joke, and all you have to do is give me a rating 1 through 5. So here we go.
All right, I'm ready.
My cell phone accidentally took 10 minutes of video of my shoes yesterday. I was some... Okay, we'll edit that out. I screwed that up. Here we go.
I'm giving you a 4 on that one. So now you've got to go again.
Yeah, geez, oh man. All right, here we go. My cell phone accidentally took 10 minutes of video of my shoes yesterday. It was some pretty good footage.
Hey, I'm a big fan of dad jokes. I'm going to give you a 4. I might have given you a 5 if you wouldn't have had the initial kind of, redo, because I was already prepped for it and trying to think through it. But I'll give you a 4 on that one.
All right, we'll do one more since I screwed the first one up.
All right.
Some people pick their nose. I was born with mine.
Okay, high 5.
Yeah, that was my recovery joke.
I'll use that. My grandson's coming into town tomorrow. I'm going to use that. He's 13. It's perfect.
Good. Yeah, mine are that level of humor. Jay, thanks for sitting through that. I appreciate it. It's probably better than it was probably better in the Coast Guard than sitting through my jokes if you had to go to the Antarctic. And I think in our previous call, we did talk. My neighbor is stationed right now in Antarctica cleaning buoys.
I was a buoy tender sailor and had to clean some buoys, mainly in the Great Lakes, but also in ice. So we had to pull them out before the ice came in and then put them back in the spring.
Right. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, we won't get bogged down on that, but I do want to talk about, you had mentioned in the green room, just digital first, and tell us your perspective on digital first.
Yeah, digital first is it's a company ago, 2 companies ago. My CEO actually created the pillar, and then I became responsible for it and defining it and breathing life into it. And it's kind of a replacement of the omni-channel concept, and it's a brand has a certain promise to deliver to a customer, whatever they believe that promise is that resonates with their customers. And And a digital first mentality brings that brand promise to every single touch, regardless of channel, in person, physical, digital. It's all the same. And so that connected commerce ecosystem that's tied together by data centricity and technologies that enable that type of experience. It's more of a mindset than it is a channel. It's about failing fast and transparency and simple metrics that help move the needle, and just generally raising the IQ, the data and digital IQ of the entire entity, rather than a few groups of silos that traditionally maybe were the experts in their area. So it's a mindset.
Yeah, do you think, I think maybe the only thing that would be lagging in digital first would be to B2B. Do you think there's other sectors that are just maybe coming across now? I have to imagine that retail is now very much embraced digital first, but maybe B2B is kind of the last vestige of those companies doing that.
Yeah, I think in retail, it's interesting you say that. If I go back in my career 7 or 8 years ago in retail, there was a movement of that type of mentality, and I do think in the last couple years we've passed the tipping point. There still are some traditionalists out there that are brick and mortar focused, and again, you can be digital first and brick and mortar focused, but they're still a little slow. Sometimes maybe in the grocery business can be a little more conservative. I think in B2B, it depends on what area you're in. Certainly in our company, because we serve retail and we serve as an enabling technology for companies, we're very, very digital first. But I do think in a lot of other areas, it takes two to tango. So it's both the provider and the consumer that needs to come together to be digital first. So it is a little bit more lagging there, but I think even it's on a movement up because there's no choice. I think at this point in the world, when you think of AI and all the customer analytics and the things people are trying to do with their data, that you almost have to be digital first. So there are laggards, but I'm pretty optimistic that the wave's going to continue.
You mentioned in your intro about generating content for yourself, for your business. How important is it that retailers or e-tailers, online retailers, generate content to support those product pages?
Oh, I think it's absolutely critical. In fact, getting to a PDP, a product page, is a key metric because it's really the step before it goes to the cart. It's the fitting room in a store. It's the holding the item up off of a rack in a store. So the resonating content and changing the resonation of content. You might have several web properties that you're promoting the same product to, but it's different audiences. So that relevance, that PDP page, when we get into metrics in a little bit, is one of the key metrics in that sort of e-commerce funnel, and even becoming more and more a store metric, because you can start bringing almost web metrics into a store with the cameras and the movement and some of the analytics that are available in stores. And that's digital first mentality. But I think content across all the channels and being relevant to the channel and the customer while also very consistent with that brand promise we talked about is critical.
I do kind of want to lean into metrics, but I also want to talk about how long they last. And yesterday I was reminded that if you are paying for your ads, if you're paying for your traffic to come to your PDP page, once those payments stop, oftentimes that traffic stops, and kind of that digital first, that content that people are creating around that are a lasting benefit in terms of SEO, in terms of bringing traffic to your pages. How much do you think retailers should look at building that broader platform of content rather than just looking at paid ads? And as a follow up, do you think a lot of retailers spend too much worrying about paid ads and not enough time worrying about just general content?
Wow, I mean I think it's a balance. I think you have evergreen content that helps your SEO, that represents your brand, that is fixed, and then it has to change a little bit as your company goes through, their own metamorphoses, because no company stays the same. But it's hard to ignore the fact that, at least in my experience, this will be the first peak I'm not living as a retailer in a long, long time. But at the end of the day, marketing is incredibly complex, and the touches all the way down through the ecosystem, and even starting up front with the merchants and price and promotion and the creative, like everything is so tied together that you have to spend a lot of attention to that transactional content as well. So there's a mix. And I think if you're over indexed or over skilled in one, you should really try to index on the other and have natural tension in there. I'm a big fan of natural tension in general in business because you don't want to just rely on expertise or short-term results. So you just have to create that balance inside of a company.
I'd like to dig into that. I like that phrase, natural tension. Explain that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
I love natural tension, and to me, organization charts are fascinating things to me. I'm a student of organizational design, and if you have a company operating really well, and really well is having all these natural points of tension that yields the proper results in a transparent, selfless fashion. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. I call it a hero culture. It's finding the problems that you're trying to solve and then solving them. Is a great example of this is traffic and conversion. The site people will say, "Hey, you're not giving me good enough traffic. It's not qualified traffic." The marketing people will say, "Hey, I'm giving you 10% more traffic than I gave you a month ago." Or you get it between marketing and analytics, and sometimes marketing and finance. And so if you can create these natural tensions where people can be fearless and be able to conflict and be able to raise things up, and then at some point, and it's kind of cheesy, but to disagree and commit at some point, I think that breeds a really good, healthy culture. If you get into silos and you try to get the data to bend to your story versus allowing the data to be the story, then you can get into some problems. So I love natural tension. It's hard because some people tension is a pejorative word and it causes insecurities or fear or something else. But if you can eliminate that inside of a company or at least mitigate it, I think any company, I don't care if you're an e-commerce or any company, then I think you're well suited to progress forward in whatever you're trying to accomplish in life, actually.
That's good. Let's talk a little bit about metrics. What are some of the key metrics that people should be looking at? And is there something that you feel that some commerce merchants don't look at close enough in terms of metrics?
Yeah, and I don't know. It's funny because I've been out of retail for about 7 months, and I feel like I've been out for 7 years. It's like an addict. I don't know if the world's passing me by. I serve retail and I talk to them every day, but I am a massive fan of contribution margin. I believe that is the top tier metric of all time, and it certainly is a primary metric to measure your marketing effectiveness. And I ROAS has some ups and downs, and everybody talks about ROAS. It tends to over index on customers that are already very familiar with you. It doesn't necessarily take into consideration margin, which for retailers is if it's not king, it's second king, or if it's not queen, it's second queen. But contribution margin, where you're taking all that marketing spend by channel, by device, new customers versus existing customers, and taking it all the way down the chain to where you get the cost per order rolling in, all the marketing costs, the shipping costs, the credit card fees, and then figuring out whether you are margin profitable on that order. It's a one-page sheet I've built in the last several companies I've been to, and to me that is the primary metric going into peak and looking month on month, year on year. I'm fascinated by it. I've written blogs about it. I had to bridge that gap between technology and marketing and site so many times in my career. It's finally one report that brings an incredible amount of transparency to the performance of both marketing and the site. And it's kind of beyond reproach a little bit versus people getting into, again, that protection mentality of trying to figure out where the problems are.
That's an interesting look at it. Then that does kind of lean into your tension model where you're really kind of laying out where that traffic is coming, where those sales are coming from. How much does like going into TikTok Shop and some of these other channels now that are helping you spread across different platforms? How much does that play into this model of having those channels and looking at where that dollar volume is coming from? on the
Yeah, and
contribution margin portion.
yeah, I mean, if you could envision a report, because I see it in my head, I see it in my sleep, is if you think of every marketing channel you have down the side, YouTube, email, SEO, direct to site, TikTok, you're putting an X amount of money into each one of those channels in any period, and you're yielding this amount of traffic. And we can talk about multi-touch attribution versus last click too, but however you're measuring that in your company, that traffic then hits the site. And then you have all the metrics in the site, including getting to PDP, getting to cart, bouncing. Bouncing is a key one, because if you're not landing people on content they expect to see, especially on that PDP page, they're bouncing. And all the way down to that contribution. So it doesn't matter how many marketing channels you have. I think one of the keys in metrics is if the way you're measuring, whether you're using last click or you have some algorithms that you've figured out a multi-touch attribution model where, hey, they saw it on social and they opened email, so we're going to give social some credit, not just email. The key on that is back to that natural tension. To me, every single metric in the company, when you think of marketing specific, marketing should agree with it, the data team should agree with it, and finance should agree with it. And you lock into those, and no one can go rogue to present their data. These are the way we're going to measure these things. We're all going to agree to it going in, and that's what we're going to use. And if you have to change that during a next period, you all come back together to align and have that tension. But it doesn't matter where the marketing channels are. I think the hard part is figuring out the halo effects of some of these channels that tend to be more brand focused or more upper funnel, and how they're impacting the lower and mid funnel. And there's a lot of AI and there's a lot of technology out there that will do that. I'm a little skeptical of the marketing channels themselves providing that. No offense to the Googles and Facebooks of the world, but they all have their own models. And interesting enough, they all think you should spend more with them. So if there was ever a secret sauce for a company, it's the analytics around how you're managing the effectiveness of your marketing.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole topic in and of itself. And
It
I was
is.
going to mention, like, is Google Analytics, like, are you not, is that a wrong place to look at? Because I know that it also only does a subsampling of all that data coming in, and oftentimes it may not even track if you're getting a sale directly through TikTok. So there's probably better downstream channels that you should be doing your analytics on, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, and you're exactly right. And I'm a fan of Google Analytics, but I also recognize that there's limitations there. I look at analytics, this type of analytics that we're talking about, the attribution of and the impact of marketing channels. I look at it along with the CDP, the customer data platform. It's in the old, if you wind the clock back 10 years ago, people were building their own e-commerce sites, they were building their own OMSs, they were building their own all this stuff. I think the secret sauce now lies in your customer data and how you're measuring all the things you're doing with that customer. So if you don't have enough people inside to do that yourself, and you don't have the right skills, whoever you're picking should be very neutral third party and very, very good at what they do. So you can have those models that are beyond reproach. Because if you just rely on one, like a Google Analytics or like any one, you're going to find yourself indexing not the way you think you are indexing, and your performance is going to be suboptimal. So to me, those two are like, those are the places, if you have the resources to build. If you don't, pick some third party, platforms, companies that you can truly, truly, truly believe in.
What sort of strategies should a merchant be looking at as we're going into the holiday season? And we're rolling into Black Friday, Cyber Monday quickly now, and it's going to come up on us awfully quickly. What should we be looking at for those type of things?
Yeah, I think, and I've been trained by my last 3 companies to be very product led, be very merchant led. If you have a great product, and it's priced right, and you've bought the right amount and put it in the right place, in the long run, you're going to be successful. You might have to change your marketing and your shipping and your customer service, but you've got to have that foundation. So it starts with merchandising, but then you have that tension, or really a more alignment that needs to come into place. You have your merchandising, you have your site merchants that aren't picking the product, but they're figuring out where it goes. You have your marketing team, you have your data analytics team. And to me, when you're going into peak, when you're going to a holiday season, they all need to be aligned. How much inventory do we have? What are our big bets? What are the price levers we have before that contribution margin, can start to suffer? Because at the end of the day, you should dial your marketing. If you're willing to spend $27 on a blank channel and that'll satisfy your contribution margin, and you're making money hand over foot, but only spending 20, up it, up that one. Know your tolerances by every single channel. Have contingency plans, because nothing goes the way you're going to expect it to. So the old scuba diver, and it's, plan the dive the plan. The more of these contingency plans you can have in place when you go into a peak selling season, the more then you can execute them when a problem happens, or all of a sudden you start to sell out of something. I mean, it could be a good problem, but regardless, you need to have contingencies on everything. And then all you have to do is execute those contingencies, which is a lot faster than in a moment of crisis trying to figure out what those contingencies are. I think the site has a big job to do. I think this landing page is becoming more and more critical. So many more people are going right to the PDP, and you want your site fast. You want it SEO ready. I mean, these are things that are table stakes, but during peak, when you have all that intent-based traffic coming in, you're a click away from somebody leaving somewhere else. And in marketing, to start that, I think people are starting now. You can't just all of a sudden go from 2 emails a week to 7 a day. You need to warm up emails. There's marketing channels within Google you need to start warming up, start getting some lessons learned, start to fine tune and tweak that plan, the campaign plans you have, the channel plans you have. The time to be doing that is now, because inventory is done. For most companies, you're not getting more inventory. You bought what you bought, and hopefully it's shown up. Thank goodness the supply chain disruption, ended quickly, at least until January. But to me, it's all about planning and then getting your dashboards in place and getting everyone to agree on those. Nothing drives me more nuts than 14 sheet spreadsheets that only one person knows, and you spend half your meeting going, wait, what is that on column BB, line 42? That doesn't reconcile. Man, to me, it's like contribution margin. Okay, we got a problem here. Now let's dig in and go figure out what the problem is. And so you need that thing that everybody in the company can embrace: stores, e-commerce, clienteling, social selling. It doesn't matter what the channel is, but you need to have those metrics really prepared. And then lastly, if you're in retail and you've been in it for a while, peak is the Super Bowl. It's fun. Even if things are going bad, it's not a time to take Alka-Seltzer. That's dating me a little bit, but it's a time to embrace it. This is the time to shine and have some fun and have some events and some morale. And so I'm a big believer in that. My dogs are barking, so maybe you'll be editing that out. But it's a good time to have fun and appreciate where you are, because this is what retail is all about. And if you've prepared well and you've done the best you can, then you don't have to be hard on yourself. I think where people get hard on themselves when they get caught by the unexpected and they don't know how to react to it. And then that's a different problem.
Yeah, I think from a leadership standpoint, the lessons learned from the holiday crush is don't blame your team in the moment. Don't come down on them and say should haves. You shouldn't should on people, especially at the busiest time of the year when people need to brace up and let's get through this, right? I think the biggest mistake a lot of leaders make is shooting on people at that time when you're right, this is the time that it could be stressful, but it's also the fun time. And my previous life in retail was Black Friday was the best time in the world, because I loved when my Zon terminal, and I'm dating myself, right?
Yeah.
I loved it when I had to batch out because it was full. And if you don't know what that is, you only had so much either dollar or transactions that you could put into your Zon before you had to batch out. And that was the best, for me, the best experience was having to close that thing out because it was so busy. I do want to just talk briefly about, is Amazon ruining our Black Friday, Cyber Monday by now having a Prime Day a month or 2 months before Black Friday? And are we just watering down sales by having a sale every month by whomever is doing it?
Well, Amazon is, and there's some really powerful, cool things about Amazon, and we're an AWS user. And of course, I get Amazon packages like everybody else. And my but is, I think that it is creating a promotion, mentality. I do think that the 2 day shipping in a lot of the retailers I've worked for, which are vertically integrated specialty retail for the most part, people didn't really care if they got it in 3 days. So that Amazon effect didn't really impact, and returns are okay. But I think the promotion side of it, and generating all that demand early because they're so big, it's ruining it, but it's not really. It's just another macro challenge, man. It's like having a hurricane or a snowstorm, or a shipping carrier once fired us 3 months in COVID, 3 months before peak, because they said they had to start firing their customers, and we had to go scramble to get like a third party, less known carrier to handle our goods. I mean, these are just macro things that happen. It's like the supply chain. It's both distressing and thrilling at the same time. So to me, I look at Amazon as a macro impact to what you're trying to accomplish. So there's no sense in doing anything but working around it and working through it, because you can still win. People are going to buy their stuff from Amazon, but people are going to buy their stuff other places as well.
Yeah, and I guess it harkens back to your earlier comments about tension, and they are the ones that are disrupting or creating tension. And it does really go back to metrics and measuring and A/B. That maybe this Prime Day that's coming up is going to be the A/B test on whether that works or not, and they're going to try it and see how it goes.
Well, and funny thing you mentioned A/B testing. Another thing I will say, and this is counter to, if this is when you know you're digital first, if you're a retailer, is that a lot of companies, like, they've already shut down making any changes to their ecosystems, and January 1st, they're going to start again. So think about that. 3 months plus, there's nothing new getting permeated into the CX world. I'm of the exact opposite mentality. You have all this traffic coming in, and if there's a way to carve out 3 or 4%, which is really like 10 or 12% off peak, with all these intent based people, it's a great opportunity to test some things that are hardened, and you're not taking big risks with infrastructure or anything. But I think if you should have some test and learn strategies going in through peak starting now, because at the end of the day, you build up your customer base and then you sell to them over peak. Peak is not the time to brand market to get people to your site. I'm not saying don't do brand marketing. I'm just saying you build your customer file up as best you can. Now you sell to them. It's much harder to get them. People have intent already, and you just need to get, eyeballs. So getting that test and learn in marketing, on site experiences, post purchase experiences, it's a great time to do that. And if you have some tension in the company to try that stuff, you're probably digital first.
Yeah, but we can't spend a lot of time on A/B, but A/B in the busy season is the time to do it, because you need that data to really test what's happening on there.
You surely do.
So as we go, what is your predictions? What do you think what is this season going to bring us?
You asked me that, or I saw that ahead of time, and it's the one question that I just have thought and thought and thought and thought about this. And I think a lot of the things I'm seeing are anywhere from a 2 to a 3.5% overall retail up year on year. When that supply chain strike hit, I thought, man, if that goes on for 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be a disaster, and it's going to take 2 years to recover, because retailers are going to stop spending. I mean, all kinds of downstream ramifications. But now that that's back, I'm going to go back to where I was. I actually am looking at something closer to a 4, and maybe even 4.5, which is higher than what most people are saying. I think the election's going to be we've had both of these candidates in one way, shape, or form in office already. COVID is generally behind us. I think people are tired, and there's this truncated period. And every once in a while, it's almost like a coming out party after the election where maybe there will be some optimism. And I'm in a minority in that. At the end of the day, people have bought what they've bought, but I'm optimistic. Of course, as a career retailer, I'm always optimistic. So I always think we're going to have a good peak. And I want that for the retail industry, and even for our competitors. I want that for everybody, because I think a rising tide lifts all boats. So I'm going with a 4 to 4.5% year on year retail bump, and not all of that with Amazon and Temu, spread across a little bit, hopefully.
That's awesome. But we're gonna have to schedule an interview in January, and let's see how we did on those, right?
And yeah, we can. I mean, I'm just a talking head, so even if I'm wrong, I'll talk about it. But if you're a retailer and you're going into holiday season, there is nothing that takes the place of optimism. Colin Powell says perpetual optimism is a force multiplier, and I 1,000% subscribe to that concept. So you got it all done. You've planned it all. You might as well be positive and have fun with it. And if you have shortfalls, then it's just something else to deal with.
Positive and have fun. I think that should be our closing statements today.
Love it.
So, Jay, as we close out, I do give everybody a chance to do a shameless plug. And we got through this whole episode without talking about Fabric and what you do for a living. What would you like to plug today?
I think the biggest thing I'd plug about Fabric, I both implemented Fabric and I had a help in the design of some of their products. We're basically an e-commerce platform that focuses in on OMS and product catalog and drop ship, but we offer the whole suite. What I love about Fabric and where I think it applies to this conversation is that we give, and our differentiation is an incredible amount of power to the end users, the site merchants, the omni-channel retailers, the people that manage inventory. And when you need flexibility during peak, rather than working with your development organization or needing training to work with a tool, very intuitive dials that you can turn. And our AI is focused on those dials to help even make recommendations. So if flexibility and the ability to pivot quickly is absolutely critical, then that's the environment that we're playing in right now. I love the company, love the people. So thanks for the plug.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give a plug to OMS that a lot of merchants don't understand OMS, or they don't know how it plays a role. But now with so many different channels and having one place to manage all your orders is so important. Just like we talked about TikTok or Instagram or however they're making those purchases.
Exactly right. It is the heart. It is the heartbeat of commerce.
Yeah, they may not be doing it on your traditional front end or your traditional e-commerce platform, but you need a place to go in, really collect all that data, and then obviously manage that flow. Jay Topper, the CCO of Fabric, thank you so much for being here. It's been such
Brent,
a great
thank you. It was a pleasure as always. Loved it.
Talk Commerce is a production of Content Basis LLC. For more creative content, go to contentbasis.io.